India Economic Conclave North Chapter saw some key policymakers, thought leaders and visionaries of India Inc. ponder over some of the critical concerns and steps to further unleash the true potential of India Inc. Our North Chapter was themed Make or Break States of Indian Economy. The award for Innovation in Camera and Technology 2019 was given to Oppo's Reno 2. Oppo has been bringing pioneering technology in both design and camera. With the introduction of world's first shark fin rising camera, 10x hybrid zoom, 20x digital zoom to rotating camera tech, the brand is committed to bring the best in camera technology in India.
Hi Tasleem, thanks for joining us here. I want to talk to you about technology because in my earlier panel and through the day we've spoken about digital India, we've spoken about the importance of technology being a disruptor, but technology in that 6-inch, I don't know nowadays, 7-inch, 8-inch or even smaller phones, that's the major game changer that I feel. You're heading R&D at Oppo. Tell me a little bit about the R&D at Oppo, because I know you've opened up your 7th R&D center, the first in India. You have 4 in China, 1 in Japan, 1 in the United States, and now you've got 1 in Hyderabad. The importance of R&D in the mobile space, how are you changing the game, changing this device that is empowering billions of Indians?
First of all, thanks to Times Network for recognizing Oppo and giving us the award in the innovation of the camera and technology. Since the camera is very close to our business, we started our business in smartphone, where the camera is the first thing which we concentrated more. And after 5 years, again, you're getting the reward on the same camera and technology. It's showing that we are moving in the right direction. And the innovation which we are doing on this particular camera technology is really touching the user and helping us in the business.
Right.
Okay. The second part, the R&D part, since you can make out that this is the Economic Conclave, and if the R&D guys are sitting here, it shows that the brand is more concentrating on the product.
Right.
Because product is the main crux for a smartphone business. And if we come up with the great product, and for coming up with the great product, you need to have the good R&D. So if I'm here, it shows that brand is investing a lot on the R&D. And in R&D it comes different parts, from the system to the camera to the network and all, which require a lot of different kind of talent pool. So we considering that the way the India market is growing up. So both the India market and the India talent pool, that's together helps the companies like Oppo and other companies to start their R&D setup in India.
And in this, the important part of R&D is also being a global company yourself. How much of global insights are applied for products in India, or how do you take global insights but adapt it, because the Indian market is totally different from what the market in China or other parts of the world is? So how is that impacted?
We completely following our government initiative that Make in India, Make for India, Make by India. So earlier we have the big manufacturing here. We do the manufacturing. Then we started that, okay, manufacturing which we are doing it, but what about the software? So now we formed this R&D last year, and now the complete software in the Oppo, which we do in the India, business in India, all done by the India R&D, not only the India product, but all the overseas, outside the China, whatever product, Oppo product we are launching, in that India R&D is playing the key role.
I do remember reading about also the fact that I think in the next year, 2020, you'd be launching a product that is completely designed here in India. Is that correct news?
Yeah. We are planning to launch next year products which is completely owned by the India R&D. Even this year also we had done a lot of products which fully done by the India R&D in the OS upgrade. But next year is the plan from the new launch itself. All the full product will be taken care by the India R&D.
So, mobiles, while obviously first were about just making calls, and then other features started getting on smartphone, it opened the access to the web, to the world for anybody. And that's actually being used by people to skill themselves. So a lot of people watching different videos or accessing information on their mobiles on the move. That is definitely adding a lot. Any new features that you see? I mean, what would the mobile phone in the next 5 years, in 2025, what would the mobile phone be? Would there be a mobile phone or would it be called something else? I mean, what's your take on that?
If you see the trend, every 6 months technologies keep changing.
Yeah.
And next few years, the 5G will play the critical role. And you know that in the 5G, Oppo, we are leading. In Europe, we are the first, one of the first OEM who had launched the 5G device in Europe. And recently, this week itself, in the India Mobile Conference,
Yes.
we are the few OEM who had demonstrated the 5G experience in India. So definitely, the way technology is changing, we trying to invest more R&D on that and trying to find out what are the things which we can innovate
Yes.
in this 1 year, and also the same time we spend a lot resource to come up some solution which is good for next after 2 to 4 years. So both directions which we are working on, short term and long term. So definitely there are many new solution, new innovation which will come as the technology goes.
One last question for you, Taslim, is Oppo, Vivo, OnePlus, all under the mother company of BKK Electronics. How much of R&D is shared? Because while there are three separate verticals as such, the three mobile companies, how much R&D is shared across the three, or do you work in separate silos?
We are totally separate company, Oppo. Our all R&D for Oppo only for us. All the other brands are the competitor for us.
Fantastic. Well, wishing you all the very best on all the luck for the way ahead, and I hope to see the smartphone evolve into a much bigger, better enabler and empowering product in the way ahead. Thank you so much, Taslim, for talking to us.
After the break, we will get you an invigorating discussion with Dr. Jitendra Singh.
Dr. Jitendra Singh, sir, let me start off by asking you. Now, isn't it crucial that aspiring states, that require to reach the national benchmarks, not only from the development perspective of making India a major power, but even towards achieving the government's own target of making India a $5 trillion economy?
No, absolutely. Without disagreeing with you, even one bit, I would just add on saying that you would recall when this government came in on the 26th of May 2014, one of the earliest statements made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi was that he would like to prioritize the peripheral, the far-flung, the smaller states of India in order to bring them at par with the more developed states, because according to him, as he put it in his own inimitable way, he said, अगर एक बुझा बलवान हो और दूसरी निर्बल हो तो भारत माता का पूरा विकास संभव नहीं है. In other words, the wholesome and the harmonious growth of India would depend on how well we have been able to ensure equitable growth of all the regions. And going by that mandate and the spirit of that, I think we could see in the last 5 years the focus that was enjoyed by the northeastern states, because I also happen to be dealing with those states. And I think the transformation which has happened, revolutionary transformation over the last 5 years or so, is of such a huge magnitude that you have to see it to believe it, because otherwise it's difficult to actually visualize how much of it has undergone. And I think, to add to what you say, what was required was the political intent, the outreach of the government, and in this case, luckily we had the Prime Minister's personal outreach. I think one of the very lesser talked about facts is that in the first 5-year term as Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi traveled to Northeast as many as about 30 times. 30 times. I mean, this is something I go around sharing with lots of friends and colleagues, and it's not much known fact, but I think that is maybe more than the total number of visits undertaken by any of the past, most of the past Prime Ministers put together. And for example, we have Northeastern Council, which has its headquarters in Shillong, because Shillong is traditionally the original capital of the erstwhile Assam. and therefore the headquarters happened to be there. Mr. Modi was the Prime Minister who traveled to Shillong to preside over the plenary meeting of Northeastern Council, and he happened to be the Prime Minister visiting Shillong for that meeting after 40 years, the last one being Mr. Morarji Desai. So that is the kind of outreach. And I think these are the states, because we tend to think of 11 states together, to come back to where you started, which includes 8 states of northeastern region and the 3 hill states, including Jammu Kashmir, Uttarakhand, we have the Honorable Chief Minister there, and Himachal Pradesh. Now these are the states which have huge unexplored potential. And therefore when we talk in the terms of 5 trillion economy, though I'm not an economist myself, nor a student of economy as such, but what I can, from a general sense understand is that we would have to look for unexplored resources, which have for certain reasons remain unexplored or untapped, maybe some of the political reasons, though I hate to comment that way. But I was the other day saying in Mizoram, because for example, we have a small state called Mizoram with just a population of mere 10 lakh. And we have the Indian subcontinent's first ever specialized citrus food park set up over there for the last 2 years with Israeli collaboration, of course. And I said, I sometimes wonder why this could not have happened earlier. Was it so because Mizoram, being a small state, hardly, contributing to the making or unmaking of the governments at the center, contributing, sending just one MP. So the concentrations of the powers that be were more focused on some of the most popular states which had a stake politically. So I think we have gone beyond that. And the same way, the Prime Minister gave us the concept of aspirational districts.
Yes.
You see, I think all the entire approach, because unless the political dispensation lays down the direction, nothing goes down. The approach has undergone a change in the work style and the work culture itself. Now, citing the example of aspirational districts, about 115 districts were identified, out of which 14 in these states, which were purely on the basis of scientific criteria, scientific parameters of development, be the healthcare, be the education, sanitation, etc., etc. I realized that the Northeastern Council had a budget of just about 700 crore. So next day, I sought appointment and reached the office of Finance Minister Shri Arun Jaitley ji. And I told him, sir, how am I going to function, because we don't have even 100 crore per state. So he smiled back. Then I said to myself whether I should have made this observation before a person like him. He was also our mentor. But he was that kind that immediately he enhanced our budget. And it's now, in the last 5 years, we have about 30% enhancement in the overall budget for the Northeast. The other submission I made to him, the same sitting, because he also happened to be looking after information and broadcasting. I said, my observation is that a state like Arunachal Pradesh is full of scenic beauty. Same also is the case of Uttarakhand. Same also is Himachal Pradesh. But you hardly have Bollywood shootings happening over there, because Arunachal at that time just had about 2 shootings. So he said, what do you infer out of that? So he used to call me philosopher. I said, sir, because I happened to be once in Leh when a shooting was going on with all these big stars, including Amitabh Bachchan was there, and for the first time I saw huge wardrobes being carried. So I asked, what is it? He said, no, their garments come ironed like this. So then I realized that in Arunachal we don't have a place to even, so can we have a film studio? But he was so kind that in the next budget, he announced a film and television institute. So we have this second film and television institute after Pune coming up in Arunachal Pradesh. So I think this government has already realized the importance of exploring the unexplored potentials, because that is statistically important to reach that 5 trillion goal.
If I can ask you, sir, you mentioned extensively on the Northeast. What is the learning that you can take from this area, which has traditionally not had very strong infrastructure, various industries that needed to be developed? What is the learning that can be taken from that area in the context of the northern region?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. Now, Northeast, and then if you take it in the context of the other northern states, Jammu and Kashmir being a classical example. See, Northeast was a victim of negligence, or maybe a different kind of a political prioritization. So therefore, for the last 65 years, we couldn't actually make the kind of headway that has happened in 5 years. And of course, connectivity and communication. are the basic prerequisites. You see, you have about 30% of fruit lying on the ground there, but it remains unutilized because you don't have storage. I told some of the Delhi industry leaders, I said, if you prepare juice, you will actually be able to sell the real juice, not the real juice which is sold in Delhi, which is quite unreal. So, but the point is that you don't have storage. Now we have started on that. Now, in this context, in the light of this, if you look at the other states, and the classical example being Jammu and Kashmir, because of the political embargoes, though this is not a session dealing with that, but the Article 370 has been a huge stumbling block in replicating all these success stories of Northeast. And I have been increasingly realizing in the last 7-8 weeks that all these things which we have done in the last 5 years could have been much easily been replicated in Jammu and Kashmir, which has, has similarities of topography and geography, but is better placed as far as connectivity and communication is concerned. But because of the self-imposed embargoes, we deprived ourselves and we did injustice to the people. Now, for example, I spoke of the Indian subcontinent's first ever citrus fruit park, having been set up in the last 2 years in a small state like Mizoram. Why couldn't we have an apple fruit park in Kashmir, or a strawberry fruit park in Kashmir, or a saffron fruit park, or now we have started first ever bamboo industrial park on Guwahati-Shillong Road, just about 2 months back. Right. And we could easily have a saffron industrial park or a pashmina unit of the same scale. So I think for reasons which are other than economics, some of these states could not actually get the benefit. But I'm sure with the kind of new direction that has been sought to be taken, this is going to happen. Because unless we put to optimum utilization the resources of these states, it is not easy because the other states have already got saturated. Now, I'll give you another example. Prime Minister gave us a beautiful program called Startup India, Stand Up India, which has a tax holiday provision, which has an exit period. You know, a young entrepreneur, if he doesn't find his heart in the venture that he has launched, he can change over in 3 months. In Northeast, from our ministry, we also added on to it a venture fund, so that the youngster does not have to actually depend on capital from other sources or his parents. And my visualization at that time was that maximum exodus from Northeast and these smaller states, including the other 3 states, happened for the search of job. But today, in 3 years, I'm gratified to see that we are getting startup growth from Gujarat. We are getting startup growth from Karnataka, which only proves the point which I was saying a few moments ago, that when the resources and potentials get saturated in some of these more developed states, the youngsters will have to look forward to these states. Right. And I'm sure the day is not far. These 11 states, including Uttarakhand, Jammu, Kashmir, also with the new kind of a political arrangement there, and the 8 states of Northeast are going to be the favorite destination of every young startup from across India.
So I want to make another point that recently at a UP Investor Summit, the Prime Minister said that Uttar Pradesh should be competing with Maharashtra to see which economy becomes a $1 trillion economy first. So, you know, obviously Maharashtra's economy is double the size of Uttar Pradesh. But do you think it's this competitive spirit, not just cooperative federalism, but competitive federalism also, that is very important to drive states in terms of realizing their aspirations?
Yeah, absolutely. This aspirational district actually is based on that. You know, you have a couple of districts. They are not necessarily backward districts. You know, though to a layman it would. This may be a district, it's come into that category because it is lacking in one of the scientific parameters. For example, it might be lacking in healthcare, it may be otherwise having 100% literacy. So then there's a scientific method of first bringing it at par by competing with the best parameter district of that state, and then the best parameter district of this country. So Prime Minister Modi has already, you know, put us on this pathway, and I think this is actually the more scientific and objective manner in which we can develop. And there is no extraneous consideration, no political considerations in this. So I absolutely agree with this, that this kind of competitiveness, which also was possibly not being possible because of the political reasons in the earlier governments, is now begun to happen. And that's why we are finding a huge transformation happening.
Next week, we will get you an insightful discussion on the food processing industry in India.